Welcome to the March to a Million podcast with Greg DuPont, founder of the Wealth Solutions Network. In this podcast, Greg shares his journey to positively impact 1 million lives by creating an army of financially minded attorneys who embrace an expanded role in their clients' lives. Greg and his guests challenge the status quo in the legal profession and the financial services industry, and show attorneys how they can improve their lives, provide greater value to their clients, and experience greater professional satisfaction. Join us in this movement and strengthen your business by learning how to solve your clients' most pressing financial problems.
Hello and welcome to another March to a Million podcast with your host, Greg DuPont. Okay, Greg, so here's the thing. You sat in the baking sun for hours because a really super cool thing just happened in your life. What was that event?
Matt, I'm so excited that I was able to sit there in the blazing sun in Central Ohio for 4 hours to watch my daughter graduate from college at the Ohio State University. So it's a major turning point in my life. But, as you and I have chatted over the years, years together now, I tend to look at things a little differently, especially when I'm sitting there pondering the meaning of existence as we're going through the processional, which in this instance, I'm not sure if you're familiar with anything about this, Matt, but Ohio State is one of the few large institutions that still hands out every diploma to the qualifying people. And in this case, we're talking thousands. So to give you some idea, it was a more than an hour as a processional of students came in and went from one end of the football field to their seats before they could actually start the people talking. So I had some downtime, which led me to ponder, wow, how much longer is this event going to still be there? How much longer is college graduation going to be a gatekeeper's pass to employment? How much longer are some of these institutions going to be around? All of this stuff on the horizon. Yeah. So a guy can come up with a few good theories, especially when he is delusional in the sun.
Yes. So you in the hot box, right? In the traitorous stadium of Ohio State University as a University of Michigan fan, which is, I'm not going to hold that against you or your daughter because it really is a great school, right? What came up, dude? I mean, you just kind of previewed a little bit of it, but there are a lot of changes that are going to be coming down the pipeline that are incredibly applicable to the Wealth Solutions Network, right? To WSN and to this March to a Million.
Yeah. So I wanted to share with some people some of my observations and weave some things together because our clients are dealing with this, and it affects on many levels. So let's start with, the student level. When we've got clients right now that have young kids and they're trying to be prudent about the future, how do they plan for what currently is an outrageous cost for higher education? I sat down with a client just yesterday, actually this morning as well, $30,000 a year projected cost. How are we going to be prudent and save for that in the face of market risk, 529s being a challenged savings device, to say the least? Why do I say that? Because if you don't use the funds for the purpose assigned, then it's in tax jail. There are ways to get some of it out, but by and large, it's in tax jail. So if you got to accumulate, $30,000 for 4 years, $120,000 plus inflation, that's a lot of money set aside behind a tax wall. So how's a family to plan for that? And this is, I was talking to the WSN member just the other day, because one of the things I'm doing with members now is we start out our coaching session with, hey, tell me what's on your desk right now.
Yeah.
What's there right now? Because I need to help you find what's going on here. And, in his 3 files in front of him, there were 2 people that had came to him for estate planning because they want to have the kids taken care of. And they're young kids.
Mm.
And so the conversation about college education there, okay, every dime has to work harder in this new future we're in. Can we afford the luxury of setting aside 120,000 plus plus inflation for that one limited purpose? And so we need to understand this. And so from the planning perspective, the WSN member and consumers in general have to start thinking a little differently, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you and I have talked in the past about other tools such as permanent life insurance or other brokerage accounts and things like that. In this future that we're heading into, which we're going to talk about in a second, every dollar has to do the work of more than $1. Yeah. And so we need to understand when we're sitting down there across the table from that family that has a young kid that they do want to, if you ask the question, what's your plan about college? They say, well, we do want to be prudent. We do want to pay for it. What do they do? How do we do that? And so we set up so $1 does the work of $3 maybe.
Yeah. But there are bigger issues too. I mean, just not from obviously saving $120,000 is a big freaking deal, right? But there are still people who are going to have to take out student loans. The other question is there are a lot of colleges that are shutting down. What were your thoughts on that in the baking sun?
Yeah, that's where I want to go next. Yeah, because for years, my brother-in-law is a professor and he now is at Rochester Institute of Technology. Great school, but before then he was at a smaller private college in the East Coast, and we've always talked about the endowments and the schools that are endowment rich and the schools that are not endowment rich. And we've pondered about when are these smaller local colleges going to start closing? And it's happening. I just read an article the other day about a handful of them that closed down, and it's sad to see, but it's a reflection of where we are. And it's not the current economy as much as the future economy as well. When there's less demand for the product, we haven't even gotten to what happens because of ChatGPT and the fact that we have knowledge in our palm that makes maybe the need for higher education less pressing. I'm sure in your circles, because you and I both travel in entrepreneurial circuits, we know lots of people that did not get that golden ticket, and lots of people that are doing very well without it. And so as we move forward, I want to challenge the thinking because it's probable that many of these schools are going to go under. And I think the higher, more research-oriented institutions, like the Ohio State University, where so much of their revenue is from their research and all that, and which is one of our country's great economic engines, these institutes. But the smaller liberal arts colleges, where we're taught to think, which is very important, are going to struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the whole change of society. So if you're sitting there with your kid that's now 2, 3, 4, 5, and when they're 12, they're going to be sitting there in front of an iPad or its equivalent, having a conversation with Aristotle. Why do they need to go to college at that point?
I don't know the answer to that. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how people have the opportunity to utilize the technology that's out there, as long as it is built well and effects, right? But my undergraduate degree is actually in philosophy. And everybody always said, oh my God, dude, that's like the most worthless degree you could possibly get. Listen, it taught me how to think. And it also taught me how to think differently, right? And so I'm able to look at things from multiple angles because that's what you have to do. And I think that, if you're sitting there and you just, brought up Aristotle or Plato, that's what they taught how to do. So how interesting would it be to be able to sit and argue with Plato or Aristotle, right? And we're there. I mean, we're already there. But this is going to be very interesting on where to go. Now, you avoided something that I thought was interesting that we just jumped over, which is student loans.
Mm.
And so this is another huge thing. First off, it's a huge revenue generator for organizations, hedge funds, individuals who invest, in debt. There's a lot of moving parts on student loans right now too. So do you have any feelings on that, or is that something you don't want to talk about today?
Well, I don't want to talk about it because I took the 30-year plan.
So did I, dude. Yeah.
I learned early on in because I hung out a shingle right out of law school, right? And I learned this word, forbearance.
Yeah.
And it was a magic phrase at that point in time. Hey, I don't have to pay, right? Sooner or later, as I found out how much interest was being capitalized to my loan at that point in time, those cheese sticks became awfully expensive over the years. But I digress. Yeah. And the whole, the student loan era, we'll call it, because it's ending, right? One way or another, it's ending. And the student loan era has it had a great growth impact, a great skewing impact. And it's much like it's a microcosm of our own economy, how we became addicted to debt in the 80s. And right now, the last time I checked, we're adding $1 trillion, a year, $1 trillion a year of interest payments on our government obligations.
Mm-hmm.
So what do I think is going to happen to student loans? Well, I think eventually they're going to go away. Mm-hmm. The whole, and we've talked about this, the movement, the social energy is away from guys like me, and it's toward the younger generations. And what are they seeing? Well, they're international. They're seeing that in other countries, they're not taking loans out for their education. They're seeing internationally, our income tax rates are lower than people they know. So it's all going to reset up. And I'm a believer on the other side, but there's going to be a lot of pain to get here.
Well, so I have 21-year-old twins, and they're constantly showing me, hey, Dad, I can move to Sweden and they'll pay me X amount a month, and I can go to school for free, and I have free healthcare, and this is going to cover my room and board and all of that stuff. And I'm like, go. Now, as a WSN member, right? There are some complexities when it comes to all of those things, when it comes to, children moving away, going abroad for extended periods of time. And I don't necessarily want to get into that. I know that those are things that you're going to talk about with your, background in estate law. But so small colleges are going to close. The student loan era is going to disappear. What else did you experience in this hallucinatory state that you were in?
A sunburn, as the video.
Dude, you're pink, dude. You're seriously pink.
Yeah. So the other thing that we need to understand is, although the engine of the research institutions is our secret sauce as a country, we're losing control on that, in the sense that the gatekeepers of knowledge are being eliminated. Again, the history of man on my hand, in my palm, with the ability for it to do interpretation. That's really what people need to understand, is the impact of these large language models that are just now in their infancy. I'm not talking about any type of apocalyptic case out of it. I'm talking about the positive case out of it. I get out of the shower. I'm sure like you, I do much of my best pondering in the shower, right? And I pick up my phone and I ask ChatGPT a question that was triggered by that thinking. And that question and answer, which I would have had to research for X, I'm now getting back, read back to me while I'm doing something that we don't need to draw an image about. Yeah. So, and that was in the past, that's the basis of a doctoral thesis.
Hmm.
And now it's done in an instant. Unlocks great things. But this whole industry that's built around paying for that doctoral thesis, and this whole industry that was built around companies paying for access to the minds of academia to do their research for them, this whole industry that's based around using the graduate students as indentured servants to do the research, all that changes. Just like with the legal profession, that was built around paying young attorneys to spend ungodly amounts of hours reading and regurgitating the law. It's all changing in front of us. Mm-hmm. And so when we go take it back to our central thesis about what's going to happen, as we're helping our clients try to figure out for their families where that's going, we know if it to extent it'll be there. There's going to be expensive options. There's going to be government options, and most people that have money will tend to gyrate toward preparing for the more expensive option. That's just the way that I've observed most families. And so that means a lot of money set aside. And that money needs to grow and grow harder in the light and in the face of a 50% market correction as we get there. So what do? Well, we at WSN believe that that path to saving for those that wish to pursue it has to have a floor on it and a reasonable opportunity for growth.
Anything else in your son / drug-induced state? So you got to watch your daughter walk across the stage and get her diploma. How'd that feel, dude?
So that's the last part of this reflection. Obviously, proud dad, all that good stuff that gets me teary. But knowing what she's going into education, elementary education. And hoping to God she doesn't get into one of the war zone schools that are out there. And I think she's going to be able to avoid that. But, just thinking back to, she graduated summa cum laude, and dad has never had any of those words referencing him. She worked a lot harder than dad did. But knowing that going into a career, and listening to the commencement speaker, which was another story all in of itself. We'll just say that he started out by talking about Bitcoin and got booed. So,
oh wow,
which he made a point, but it was lost. Mm-hmm. Anyways, all those people, those kids graduating, they need to realize that their career is going to be so much different than their vision of it, and it's going to change so many times. Mm-hmm. How many jobs, how many different positions have you had, Matt? We've shared that, many different versions of Matt. Yeah, I started out, I was going to be mechanical engineer, aeronautical engineers to be specific, then architect, and then an accountant, and then, of course, an attorney and financial advisor, just straight as an arrow.
Yeah, dude, my brother has had the same job for 30 years, and I'm like, you're weird, dude. It's like, this no one does that anymore. But I think best laid plans, right? And so it's very interesting how many people really think that this is how they're going to identify themselves. And part of your planning that you're going to do with your financial advisor, and as an estate planning attorney specifically, you need to have those conversations with your clients. So what happens if your daughter, whose life's goal since she was knee high to a grasshopper is to be a teacher, and she does it for 3 years? You as a family need to have those conversations. And in fact, very few families, Greg, and this is frustrating to me as an ex-therapist, very few families have those conversations. And being prepared and comfortable in those conversations makes a huge difference in your client's life.
Another way that we can add value. Reflecting back on our last podcast with the role as a counselor and coach. That's where we add value, and that's where we add insight, and that's where, at least at this point in time, the human intellect and human connection is the key to a future.
All right. With that, Greg, if anybody wants to know more, where do they go?
www.joinwsn.com.
All right, everybody. Listen, these sorts of musings and reflections are really, really wonderful for you to share so that people really truly understand the vision that Greg's had in building WSN. It's a wonderful opportunity for you to share this content with your other attorney friends who really truly want to be able to add something different to their practice that feels different, looks different, and provides a much more comprehensive, holistic result with the clients that you're working with. So please make sure that you go to joinwsn.com. For Greg, this is Matt Hallern, and we'll see you on the other side of the mic very soon.
Thank you for listening to the March to a Million podcast. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available, and get in touch with our team by visiting our website at www.wealthsolutionsgroup.biz, or give us a call at 614-432-8065. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Wealth Solutions Network. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice from qualified financial service providers with any questions you may have.